Wildwood Creative, and today I'm going to show you how to pattern match the backing for your quilts, just like this one. So this one I pattern matched right here. I'm not even sure if you can tell where the seam is for the two prints. But this is a great way to make your backing fabric look like it is just one giant piece instead of two pieces. It's a really simple process, and it really doesn't take that much extra time than standard piecing your backing together. And a couple things to note before we get started. If you are planning to pattern match the backing for your quilt, you will definitely want to get extra fabric. I usually say about a half yard extra of your backing should give you enough room. Basically, when we go to put the two pieces together, we're going to need to adjust them kind of up and down to get the patterns to meet. So depending on the scale of the print and the repeat of the pattern, you may need a little bit more, a little bit less, but generally speaking, a half yard is enough to do this. And then last thing before we get started is I wanted to mention what I'll be using to do this, which is good old-fashioned Elmer's school glue. Yes, school glue. This is how we are going to attach the pieces together once we pattern match them before we sew them. On mine, I have this special little tip from Pen and Paper Patterns. I really like this. It gives you a really nice fine bead of glue. Definitely don't have to have it, but it does make the job a little bit easier. So grab your glue, grab your iron, grab your sewing machine. Let's get started. A quick note before we get started, backing fabric is usually listed as like 5 yards. You are cutting that length in half into two pieces. So I am working with two 2.5 yard pieces in this tutorial. I'm starting with the first piece and I'm folding over the long edge, wrong sides together, about an inch. The exact amount is not important. You definitely want more than a half inch, but just pick a spot in the design of the print that you can follow. So here I've kind of lined it up with that little eye on the skull, and I'm looking at the little leaf and the moth and just kind of looking at the print and making sure that that crease is going along the same spot in the print all the way down. So this is more important than having like an exact 1 inch, just making sure that it is pressed at the same spot in the design all the way along the long edge. So I am taking my time, pressing this over, wrong sides together. I also chose to just leave the selvage on because we are going to trim this later. That's why I do a little bit bigger of a seam allowance. I would rather just trim it later than trim it before, if that makes sense. So press the long edge on one piece over about an inch, and then we are grabbing the second piece and laying that out right side up on our ironing station. So you see I've got the other side of the selvage for this piece, and I'm just giving it a quick press where we are going to be joining the two pieces. I'm not worried about pressing the entire piece right now. We'll do that at the end. And then I'm grabbing the Elmer's school glue that I mentioned earlier. Here is the piece that we pressed the edge under. And now I am just going to get it lined up on top of the piece that we are joining it to. And I got really lucky here. I probably didn't need to buy extra fabric. This print had a really small repeat, so I was really easily able to line it up without a lot of overhang. But that is why you need the extra fabric if you're going to pattern match, because you may need to shift it up or down 6 inches or more to get those prints lined up, and you don't want to be too short on your backing. So that's why we get extra. Once we have everything in place and lined up nicely, I'm using that Elmer's glue to run just a really nice small bead of glue along the folded edge. The precision tip on the glue bottle definitely makes this job a little bit easier, and you don't need a lot of glue, just a very small bead. Once you have the glue in place, go ahead, make sure everything is lined up perfectly again. I went ahead and cut out a lot of the shots of the back of my head for you so you didn't have to stare at it. But I really get in there and get in close to make sure everything is lined up. And I just work in sections. So I basically work the length of my iron, get that in place, and then iron it to heat set and dry the glue. And this is just going to tack everything in place for us until we are ready to sew it together. So really take your time here, get everything lined up, and then put the iron on for like, I don't know, 5 seconds or so. You should be able to feel with your fingers that it's completely dry, and just work section by section all the way down. So I had a throw size quilt for this. So it was like 2.5 yards. Once you're ready to move to the next section on your ironing board, just be really gentle as you lift and shift everything. You don't want to pull apart the two pieces that you just glued. And again, just doing a quick little iron on the piece where I'm joining, nice fine bead of glue, getting things lined up and heat setting in place with my iron. Once we have everything glued together, we are ready to sew. So I am taking that top piece and flipping it over so the two pieces are right sides together. So you can see where we joined them, and then we have that nice crease, and we're just going to be stitching right in that crease line. If the two pieces got stuck together at all, just get in with your fingers and gently pull them apart. So carefully bring all of this over to your sewing machine, and we are just sewing right in that crease line. For me, I am looking kind of right at the front of my foot, right where those two little skis are, and just making sure that the crease line is going right down the center of my foot. Personally, I find it is a little bit easier for me to keep a steady straight line if I go a little bit faster, but do what works best for you. I'm kind of just working in sections here, making sure everything is nice and flat as it goes through the machine. So just grabbing all of that excess, shifting it onto the table, but we are just stitching right down the crease line that we made from pressing that first piece of fabric. So all the way down, sewing your two pieces together. And then when you get done, we need to trim off the excess. You definitely can do this with your rotary cutter. For me, I find it is easier to just do this at my sewing machine with my scissors really quick as I'm kind of pulling all of the fabric back through the machine. I just go in with my scissors and trim it to about a 1/2 inch. I just kind of eyeball it. I'm okay with that. If you want to get your rotary cutter out and do this precisely, go for it. I love that for you. I just use the scissors. And then we are just giving it a really quick final press. And we did pretty good. Look at that. We have a nicely pattern matched backing. And that's it. Now you have a perfectly matched backing for your quilt. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and it was helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more tutorials planned. And if you need backing fabric, be sure to check out our site, wildwoodcreative.com. We have lots of cute fabrics there. Thanks. Bye. Thank you.